Hello, this is the Don speaking. The reason why I'm actually recording this is because we actually had a technical error at the first 5 minutes of the episode. You didn't really miss anything. We were just doing interviews. We're interviewing each other. Episode 21, and obviously talking about where you can find the podcast. And we basically just get straight into Legend of Tomorrow, the whole season 3 review, as well as the final episode. So, hope you enjoy.
Time travel works because otherwise it's gonna again, overall in the show, like messing with time is very serious, but I think in this season in particular, it's kind of been like, things are broken, we're gonna fix it. At the end of season 2, they basically save the world and kind of create a bit of a I guess time travel, like rule break in which they interact with, I guess, past versions of themselves, and this kind of leads to, I guess, time and space like fracturing. Despite saving the world, they kind of come back, and there's dinosaurs and I guess aliens and whatnot, like just in the middle of like the city and stuff. And just when you think it's all bad, Rip Hunter, their previous captain, comes in and reveals that he's created the Time Bureau, which is, I guess, like a
Time
council. Like,
cops.
well, I mean, it's kind of supposed to be like his version of like the Time Masters from the first season, who are the main antagonists, and
Who
kind
all
of like,
turned out to be pretty bad people.
yeah, turns out, right? And yeah, he kind of like, sets these people to motion and kind of make the legends, I guess, uh, I don't know, he basically replaces them. But as the season kind of progresses, they're like, hey, maybe doing everything by the books isn't, the correct way to approach things. But, only in the way that they do it in this show do they make it very entertaining to, like, screw up time. Whereas, in your head, you're like, don't do that. But they're like, whatever.
I feel like
It's just time.
I feel like in the second season they're a little bit more like, oh, you can't do this because of time and stuff. And I think in the third season they're like, you know what? Let's just forget about that kind of thing. And I feel like
Yeah.
there's less of the bureau being like, oh no, you've left something bad happening. And I feel like it's kind of got it's like little charm. Like, like once again the standouts I really liked. Obviously, like I kind of like the Elvis episode. I kind of like that. I thought that was pretty cool. Obviously this season had the whole Firestorm thing because of the crossover of Crisis on Earth X.
Yes.
And that I once again I think we talked about it before, and like it's a pretty good episode. We just didn't understand the whole I guess death, I suppose. Yeah, like
it felt very, I guess, rushed and very forced in the sense that because I think the actor, he didn't want to continue playing, the role as Professor Stein, which I think it's not necessarily. I think again, I mentioned this before. It's always good to kind of have an out, just being like, I'm gonna retire, and maybe if you guys need me, I'll come back again. Like it's always very, a good way to give yourself a little bit of leeway. I think that's currently happening on Arrow because the return of Roy. He came back for a couple of episodes, and he's supposed to, go off with Thea and live happily ever after. Them being quite a couple in the first 2 seasons of Arrow from memory. But now the actor who's playing Roy is, I think, going to be a regular for next season. So
that's weird because like
what
I think what I heard in like early talks, it was like I think Stephen and Mel didn't like him. Like they had personal feuds, so he's like, I want this guy out, and that's what happened. But once again, I don't know. I always thought that like, because that's the thing. Like, if we want to like talk about Arrow for a bit, I felt like Thea's character in this new season really just didn't need to be here, and I feel like they've kind of like shoved her away. I guess like they're like, you can replace you or like time you out. I guess put you on bench, for now.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really like the Thea character. I think she is supposed to be an original character in the, Arrow universe. And, they do kind of integrate her very well, being Malcolm Merlyn, already, like, an established character in, like, I guess, the Arrow universe, and making him his daughter, was really cool. Like, I really liked that, and making her into like the second Speedy, because of course I think the Roy actor, I think his name's Colton Haynes. He left to pursue like an acting career elsewhere, and that's the reason why he doesn't like return, after season 2, because he obviously wanted to go and do other things. But now that he's returned, it just kind of throws off things because, I guess Roy, who also goes by the name Speedy and also technically goes by the name of, I think, Red Arrow as well.
Then you're like, there's no Arsenal here as well, and it's like, this is really confusing here.
Well, he hasn't lost his arm yet, so he can't become Arsenal just yet, I guess.
I get a feeling if he stays as a regular, that's gonna be next season thing, and then it'll be like a mechanical. I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that.
No, I actually believe they do refer to him as Arsenal in like season 2 or something. I could have sworn there's something like that actually happens because Thea becomes like Speedy and wears like the red costume, and so he just goes by like a different name, and they're like, they do it in like the very
jokey way where it's like self-aware,
yeah,
like oh
yeah,
no,
like,
should I call you Arsenal? It's like, yeah.
It's like, oh well, I guess you'll be our Arsenal. Like, it'd be something dumb like that. I'm pretty sure he's gone by it. But I really like it. It just kind of throws off the continuity a little bit because it's just like, oh well, he just disappeared for like 4 years and now he's back. Not that I'm complaining because I actually really did like him in season 1 and 2. Again, Arrow season 1 and 2, very solid seasons. I really actually liked season 5. I think, like, again, it's not better than season 2, but like the finale was one of the best finales, and one of the best episodes in all of like the.
Can you actually refresh my memory on that one? That wasn't the missile one, was it?
No, it was the one that happened in Lian Yu. So they returned back. Yeah, and he teams up with Deathstroke, and it's just everything that you could love about like.
Yeah, it felt like a mini team up where it's like, oh yeah, all these people from my past, and we're gonna do a team up. And I remember I really liked that episode. Actually, the season finale, Legends of Tomorrow. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. It was kind of the same thing where it's kind of like a little small mini team up again, getting everyone basically from the season kind of together again. It's like I think it's okay. Once again, it's nothing too wild about, but I think like once again, solid season. Okay, I think it's a pretty good episode. But yeah, I'm pretty mixed on it. I guess I don't really feel that much emotion to it. But
I think I was pretty disappointed with the Marlis character because he's kind of propped up to be this, demon entity who has all this power over time. Right, like a time demon. Like it's a very interesting concept, and obviously they've kind of opened this up to connect it to Constantine, which
he's back, guys. This is my pretty much my favorite DC character's back.
Well, they might actually try and finish off what they started with the Constantine TV show with Legends of Tomorrow. Maybe, who knows? But actually, we'll get up to the future for this show in just a moment. But the one thing, like Malice, like he kind of didn't do anything towards the end. Like I kind of like the throwback to Bebo. Who was kind of like a little bit of a joke. Like it's like, oh, okay, like this kind of cuddly Elmo-esque figure that becomes like a god to these kind of ancient Viking tribes gets used as like the embodiment of like I think good against like the demon. Like I kind of like the throwback. Again, the writing pretty good. Like in order to try and pull back certain things.
Yeah, I feel like the writers of this show and what they've kind of structured is. They, I think, reward like hardcore fans where it's kind of like it like once again we'll be talking about it like later on with the Ready Player One. I think it just rewards people who invest the time into certain things and kind of like, hey, remember this? Well, we're doing this, and it's like I feel it's pretty well written in that respect. Like, and once again I could see where you're coming from with the villain problems because it was kind of like generic bad guy, I guess, and it wasn't really like. You have time powers, but you're not really showing your time powers type of thing. It's just random energy blasts.
Yeah, and like they had the whole thing with, and just to get the listeners kind of up to date. So essentially, because the Legends had fractured time, had basically enabled the potential release of a time demon called Malice, and so the team are kind of scrambling to try and get the possession of 6 totems, which are kind of similar to what Zari wears, which is an animal totem.
He's got a very heavy arc in this I guess these few episodes, like the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of makes sense because it's kind of a farewell arc, because she due to certain circumstances,
She GG'd.
Yeah, but they do have a new kind of totem bearer who will be with them, I'm assuming, unless she's gonna be returning to the future. But anyways, but on top of that, I think so they were basically trying to find these 6 totems because they're the only things that would be able to seal the demons. And by the way, so Zari is actually the new totem bearer, and Maya is the animal totem bearer. My apologies. But yeah, so
once again, I get that stuff confused a lot of the time.
Yeah,
like...
I mean, there's so many characters sometimes. Like, yeah, I know them more by their superhero. I guess
the actual comic counterparts aside of
like I know him as like Vixen, and I know him as actually I actually don't know what Zari's actual character is in the comics. I didn't really read up too much, other than the fact that Isis. Yeah, I could understand why they didn't want to call her Isis.
Yeah, it's like well done. You literally can't do anything anymore with it.
Yeah, they literally do only call her Zari throughout the show. But yeah, so that's the kind of role of the guys in this season. But they do have some really cool episodes. Such as Mick kind of going back to the Vietnam War and meeting his dad, and kind of trying to help his dad out and try and become again, the whole thing about this arc is, and I guess this season in general, is that maybe we should make some changes. Like, change is good, and I think they did kind of show it with Professor Stein, because he makes a really big change in his life where he basically talks to a younger version of himself and ends up accidentally convincing him to have a kid, and so now he has like this daughter out of nowhere. Whereas in this season, it's the characters are like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna do this because this will be like, again, it's people making these selfish decisions, which usually is not very heroic. But I guess that's why they're called legends.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like this season had like a lot of parallels with I guess family and parents and things like that. It wasn't just for like Zari and obviously Mick and his dad when it comes to Vietnam, but it's also Damien Dark and his daughter as well. Like, I feel like there's a lot of parallels, I guess, of like self-sacrifice maybe, or just like dad figures and things like that. Even Professor Stein, you could say, is a father figure. Forgot his name, but that dude.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but like, once again, I feel like there's a good parallel, and that's probably what they want to do with the season. And yeah, I thought it was pretty solid. Obviously where they're going to next is because they said if they get renewed, which they did, because like everything got renewed aside from
everything.
Like, I don't know, a few things that later on, like I think iZombie is like, oh yeah, we're gonna see at the end of the season or whatever. But like, yeah, Constantine's.
Do you watch iZombie?
Yeah, I do. I do. I enjoy it.
Should I watch it? Like, I know there's a couple of seasons. Like, I think like anything Vertigo comics I haven't watched. Anything that's like a Vertigo kind of comic.
Has that been on purpose, or is that just random?
No, I don't know. I think it's just because I don't read Vertigo comics usually. Which again, like Constantine was originally a Vertigo property until he was kind of brought over to the DC side of things. But like, I don't know. Like, it's not that I actively avoid it or anything, but it's just like, I don't know enough about it. Like, should I read it? Should I watch it? I don't know. But yeah, like iZombie's been going on for quite a bit, and I think does have its like fan following.
Yeah, I think it's up to its 3rd to 4th season. I think 4th season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy it. It's if you ever watched what is it, Veronica Mars?
Mm-hmm.
It's like done by the same creator, and it's kind of got this feel of like it's kind of procedural. It's kind of like a and like a CSI type of thing, but it's I guess it's got more like funny stuff in it, and it's more, I guess, supernatural because there's zombies in it. So it's like, obviously she eats a brain, she can see visions, and then she solves these cases. But it's kind of like, it's kind of got the same type of humor as something like Flash and Arrow and things like that, where the like one of the friends, I think his name's Ari. Basically he's kind of like the guy who works at the morgue, and he's pretty funny as well. So it's got like a lot of good, funny dialogue and banter. I think just like check out even like the first, like everyone says, check out first 3 episodes to see if you like a show. And I'd say, iZombie is something to check out if you just want something kind of procedural and kind of fun at the same way.
I was gonna say, what you were saying about CW superhero shows getting a renewal. For some reason, in one of the press releases I read, like they added Riverdale to it. I'm like, Riverdale is a DC property, but hey, you know what?
It's a comic property, so I think they're just sure, why not? I don't think a lot of people have nuances being like Archie Comics. Like, hey, I still think there are some people being like, oh, so this is based off Archie Comics. Like, I got a feeling people who watch Riverdale, like the normies, don't even know that it's like Archie comics related.
I think people in Canada and America would, because when I went to Canada, I've got cousins in Canada, and essentially, like, they just gave me a bunch of Archie comics, like, before I left to come back to Australia. And that's how I knew what Riverdale was. Because I was like, oh, I know what all these characters are. And that's a whole reason. Like, usually, like, I would never, ever watch a, I guess, kind of 90210 styled Dawson's Creek-esque mystery, like Scooby-Doo kind of thing. Oh, actually, I'd watch Scooby-Doo, but I'm not really a big fan of all these kind of like, I guess, teen drama shows. But like Riverdale, because I already know all the characters, I know all the connections, and I like the kind of twists and turns. That's the reason why I watch Riverdale. So I'm actually really happy that like Riverdale, on top of all these shows, got a renewal. But with the next season of Legends of Tomorrow, what do you think will happen with the show? What do you want to happen with the Legends? And I guess Constantine being the new member.
Ooh, well, that's the thing. It's like you're dealing with like a time thing, and then with magic. Like, I think I think someone was mentioning it before. It's like once you introduce magic to a show, kind of makes it a little bit like iffy because you can just do whatever, and what's the ins and what's the outs. But obviously they can play around with it. Obviously they have restrictions when it comes to time. But obviously I feel like, maybe next season's going to be, as we were talking about before, Zari's kind of like the I guess the audience conduit for the 3rd season. Maybe the 4th season's gonna be a kind of Constantine thing where it's like Constantine's kind of introducing like everyone else, Ray and stuff like that to I guess magic and how it kind of deals. So maybe it's gonna be a mix of like sci-fi and magic, and I think that would be a really cool mix. I guess they're gonna be fighting demons, or there's gonna be like another demon or something, like demon hunting.
I think it's supposed to be multiple demons. Like the thing is, like a lot of and I think it's going to be very reminiscent of Supernatural, which I think once again is part of the reason why...
I think that's a CW show as well,
that's correct. It is
14 seasons or whatever, and still going. And Jesus, oh god,
yeah. Well, I used to watch Supernatural. I think I kind of gave up after like season 4 or something.
I think season 8 was supposed to be like the true ending. I think like. Certain things happen. Something happens because I think they were just like, this is the end, and then they got renewed, and like this thing happens, and we get renewed, and like, come on, stop renewing us.
Yeah, I think like they kind of knew that. Yeah, it's a cash cow, and people love watching like those two brothers getting into shenanigans. I think a lot of Supernatural kind of borrows from Hellblazer,
which is the Constantine comic, and that's pretty much the main reason why that TV show failed. But yeah.
And, well, to be fair, like I think a lot of the concepts would probably be like, hey, I've already watched this. This is basically, Supernatural. They're trying to double dip and feed me the same thing. Like I could imagine maybe to some people, like, that's what they might, receive. And I think that's why, personally, I thought the Constantine TV show was like, okay. I really loved the actor, like
Matt Ryan, like he's like
solid.
He's the perfect Constantine. I think like whoever like cast that is like spot on, and I think that's why, like, if there was ever some sort of reboot, I think he would stay. He's like the Deadpool for all the Marvel movies, where it's like you cast the perfect person for this. I don't think you can do any better with this.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is, I think the actor's also Matt Ryan. He's also very like active about his role of Constantine. Like he kind of, you know, talks to the fans, and he's kind of, you know, he was trying to get a lot of the people to be like, oh, you know, hashtag Constantine, like, you know, save Constantine and all that kind of stuff. I think, you know, he really wanted, obviously, you know, he's got a lot of self-interest. He probably wants to keep his job, right? But at the same time, you know, he probably likes playing the role. And I think he does the role very well. I kind of want Legends of Tomorrow to maybe move away from the time travel stuff, and just focus on magic. And for that to basically happen would mean they'd have to like be at a certain point in time. Maybe it's like, okay, like maybe it's going to be like the modern, like, you know, maybe it's modern time, maybe it's like 2018 or 2019, whenever they announce the season. And they're just like, okay, we have to go find all these demons. Let's do it now. Because again, like it's what you said, they'll have to factor in time travel and magic. And I think maybe that might be a little bit too much, given, you know, like, again, there's a lot of like concept that you're trying to throw in. And I think that kind of is one of the reasons why the Constantine TV show, I think, didn't do as well, or at least was an aspect I didn't like, was there was nothing to really follow with like the magic aspects, or like, I guess, the concepts that they introduce in Constantine. Maybe towards the end, they had a few things where they're like, oh, well, and this is something that I did in like episode 1 or something like that. But obviously, again, I think a lot of their ideas have been taken from, you know, taken by Supernatural, so they can't go and maybe they feel like, oh, we can't revisit these things because it's too similar. Like having a gun that can shoot any demon or something like that. I'm not too sure if that's actually a Constantine related thing, but if it was, like, you know, they'd be like, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't put that in. But, you know, I'm interested in seeing, like, you know, maybe instead of them, you know, traveling in the Wave Rider, you know, they, I think Constantine actually has his own kind of house. I think it's called the House of Mystery, or the Mystery House.
He won it off a bet, and so he just kind of, I think it does kind of teleport, so it's gonna cut that thing. I think it can go through time as well, so it's kind of like the Wave Rider. It can hide. Like, it has magical power. It has a lot. It can do basically anything. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what magic is. So I think, like, maybe, like, you know, it might be something like, you know, the Time Bureau are like, okay, you've done everything. Bye now. And they take the Wave Rider, and they're like, hey, what are we gonna do now? And they're like, hey, come to my house, right? You know, again, it's a very iconic Constantine thing, and I think it also gives it a very, you know, like the characters from the show are probably going to interact with the house in very interesting ways, you know, finding all the like random magical objects that, you know, Constantine has collected over the years, and maybe getting into like shenanigans again.
Something gets released, being like, oh, that was a prison or something like that, or this item does this thing, and you have to go hunt it down. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I want. Like, it basically becomes Constantine, Constantine the TV show, but it's more fun, and it becomes, you know, it has a lot of like again, Constantine is a very, like, I guess, brash character, and very, you know, while he's, you know, jokes a lot, he's also really serious at the same time. So he probably needs somebody that he can like bounce off, and there's a lot of characters that he can bounce off in you know, Legends of Tomorrow, whether they be like someone serious like Rory, or somebody, I guess, goofy like the Atom, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's all these people that he can kind of work with, and I think the synergy will work very well.
Yeah,
but
I think
whether or not they do it.
Yeah, I feel like with the strength with DC characters is like them acting with other people, and I think that's what a lot of people like of like even a lot of DC stuff. And when there's the crossover movies, they like the banter of like, oh, this thing and this thing, and it's kind of semi-related. Just quickly, I was actually looking at the IMDb. Apparently, there's a Constantine animated series, and it's so far 5 episodes in, and I've never heard of this.
Yeah. So I think they were. I haven't watched it myself, but I know that you know, they released a bunch of animated shorts about the Vixen. So this is Amaya's daughter that's in America. The future Vixen, I guess. And this was like an animated short, and it had like Arrow and Flash from the CW, their counterparts kind of doing the voice acting for the animated series. And I think the Ray, who was a character introduced in the Crisis on Earth X episode, Nazi arrows and
Nazi
whatever.
arrows.
Look, it's a Nazi universe, right? And so the Ray was introduced in that, and I think they had a short, and they also have a Constantine short as well. So maybe that might actually have a little bit of insight of what the next season will be. We'll probably have to watch it and review it for you guys next week, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely, because DC animated stuff's off the chain, as we were talking about before. Season 3 of Young Justice finally kind of like finished, I guess. Apparently.
Yeah, I think they've either done like all the animation or they've done all the voice acting, one or the other. And yeah, like I'm really excited for season 3 because again, this show got axed like 5 years ago now, I want to say.
Oh yeah, I feel like it was a lot longer, but I don't. It was quite a while away. I remember being heartbroken for a very long time.
Well, I mean, I still remember the show like it was yesterday because I really like the quality of that show. It just like destroys like any of like kind of the current DC movies. And I know, we've done a few reviews of DC movies and, we haven't been very like, I guess happy with like the quality or like the story and stuff. But
hey,
like,
speak for yourself. Speaks for yourself.
Hey, look, I'm just saying, like, for example, I think, what was it? The Killing Joke, for example.
Oh yeah, that
right?
one. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's like an example of like, they're kind of rushing the content and it's kind of been like, ugh, like what are you doing? Like, and I think like some of the other stuff like, what was it? Like I think like Justice League versus like Teen Titans, it was like a kind of animated movie and that like, again, like they're borrowing a lot of concepts from like the New 52 and things like that. But a lot of the character designs and a lot of like, maybe the voice acting and the story direction is kind of like, oh, what are they doing? Although the one thing I really do like about those films is they're very cohesive. There's like an in-universe kind of continuity, which is very interesting to follow, even though I don't necessarily agree with like, maybe some of the characters' portrayal, but it's mostly aesthetic in my opinion. You can't really beat, how like I guess the Bruce Timm kind of animation was like back with Batman the Animated Series and
I think they took a lot of time doing a lot of that stuff back in the day. It's a completely different style now.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Whereas if you look at like Young Justice, again, it came out 5 years ago, but its animation quality and like is just way streets ahead of that the movies that are coming out. So season 3, I'm very excited for. I'm more excited to see like what they're actually going to be doing, whether they're going to continue the I guess the Apocalypse storyline they kind of teased at the end of second season, or if they're just going to do like a bit of a time jump and be like, no, we're not going to talk about that. Hey, we're going to talk about more interesting things. Like again, they've done time skips before. I don't see them not doing it this time around. But speaking of DC animated movies, you've recently watched the latest Suicide Squad movie, haven't you?
Yep. So not the live action one, obviously, because everyone would be losing their minds. Because